Nunat, I have no idea why I always get a dinner time panel holding the audience hostage from the food. But thank you so much for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Welcome to the Social Fabric panel. We've got some stellar growth leaders here, and I think we're going to start with a very quick round of introductions. Your name, designation, which is already there, but also a little bit about what you do, what you like to do, and what you're excited for, especially this bull market. So I think we can start with you, Boda.
Hey everyone, great to be here. Apur this side. I'm one of the founders at Interact, and at Interact we're building a identity and reputation protocol with use cases across Web 2 and Web 3. As of today, our infrastructure is being used by around 1,000 plus partnered apps to grow and acquire real humans through our proof of humanity infrastructure. So that's what we do. We have around 12 million wallets in lifetime, around 1 million monthly users who come to our platform to engage with new Web3 products.
Thanks. Hi, I am JB, man of many hats, which is why I don't have any hat on my head. One of the roles I play in right now is the growth advisor at One Asset Exchange. We tokenize RWAs, films, and the one project activity is dealing with water tokenization. Among that, I'm also the director of strategic alliances at the Indian Blockchain Alliance. Just a little bit about me, and yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Vikram. I'm co-founder at Hypermind Labs, and my team has been working on identity for last 3 years, mostly around decentralized identity and data privacy. We have been involved in some government projects and also in some applications that we are building for Web3. And one of the cool product we have built is called ICO, similar to Interact, but very different in the way built ground up from a data perspective. We have around 500,000 users so far and have done over 350 plus campaigns. Very new in the market, but yeah, that's about me. Thank you.
My name is Anirudh. I lead partnerships and growth at Etherspot. Etherspot is a UK-based account abstraction firm. We essentially build account abstraction and chain abstraction infrastructure. So for those of you who have no idea what AA or CA is, what we do is we try to make anybody who's building on-chain, any dApp, any project, be it an enterprise, be it a small indie project, anybody, if they're able to integrate our infrastructure, it becomes a lot more usable. The user experience becomes a lot more intuitive, almost like a Web2 kind of an experience. And that's what we aspire to create. Especially over the next couple of, over the next couple of months, one of the things that we're most excited about is the entire trend of chain abstraction that's going to come into play. And we are hoping to see if we can deliver a lot more value to the users and thereby see how we can all grow together. Awesome. Thank you so much for the reminder, by the way, JP. And I think let's kickstart this panel. The first question is essentially about community. So I think Web3 is one of the only areas where I've seen people make money off a Discord server, right? I think we all know people who made millions just being active, shit posting on Discord and keeping an eye out. So I think that's my first question. How critical do you think is community engagement for the long-term success of a blockchain project? We can start with Apurv and then go around.
So if you think about Web3, what they essentially, the technology and the ethos solve for is incentive alignment, where essentially you can rally a set of stakeholders together towards a common cause and, align incentives to let the cause, foster. And essentially for that to happen, community is like the cornerstone of it. So if you're aligning incentives, and that basically means you're rallying people to come together and work towards a common cause. And that is exactly what a community is. It can exist on Twitter, on Discord, on your website. That doesn't matter. The channel doesn't matter. But essentially, all these people are here because they believe in something together. They are building it ground up from the very first day and moving towards, scaling it up. And hence, community kind of becomes the cornerstone. Because without a community, that incentive alignment ethos doesn't really come into picture. As compared to Web2, right, where basically you are the stakeholder for Facebook or Instagram or Netflix, but you don't really have a say in, what kind of content they push in front of you, right? So that's not a community, that's more of a one-sided communication from a decision maker to a consumer. In this case, it's kind of like a to and fro, one-on-one conversation, right? So that's essentially what community is, and that's why I think it's important. Because without that, you're not able to essentially align people together towards a common goal.
My answers are always very simple, and I try to talk from my experience. I think most of us have worked or built products in Web3, so we understand the pain point, and the points that he mentioned are all absolutely true, but the community that you will make now might not be the community that is going to stick to you forever, because the project has to survive every bull run after bull run if you are actually building for a long term perspective. And I'm saying this because for me this is my second bull run, and the whole the environment changes. If all the strategies that I learned during the last bull run around building community, that doesn't work anymore. So the strategies changed, the type of people who have entered in market are different. So this, all the point that he said are absolutely true. That's the base of it. But the second point from there is to, you have to be so proactive in understanding how the market is behaving and try to understand from there, like what type of users are coming in the ecosystem, and then try to relate, okay, so what is my next like 6 month or 1 year goal, and try to build specific community only for this specific goal, because these are not going to stick. It is very simple. Specifically, if you are focusing on launching a token and building a community for your token, so it has to be goal specific and a short term. But then you have to also see that what is my long term vision and what kind of users might stick to it. So like Apur was saying, the base of it is for sure there, but then to actually have some output in your project from the community, you need to think in the short term and also understand the current market behavior. This is my...
So I think what I'm taking away from what you're saying, and that's very interesting, is when you're building community, you need to focus on looking at, even though you might have a long-term perspective on things, because as a founder or as a builder, we all tend to have, let's say, a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. It is important to incorporate the fact that people are fickle. People are going to keep moving around. People are going to float between your product and probably a competitor's product. So build in short-term cycles. Build your community one after another. I think that's basically what I'm taking in. Yeah? JB, do you have any thoughts on this?
So very quickly, it's like, so what is the purpose of community? Community needs to exist for you to also validate your product.
Yes.
In many ways. And though that's a bit this way, right? How many of you are Apple users alone? Just raise a hand, Apple users. Yeah. Fantastic. Great. Okay.
How many of y'all still have your Axie Infinity tokens?
Right. So, dude, see, finally, it is more to have a community that's doing something that is there at you. The longer you are able to validate that your student, right? And yes, it is a two-way street. Let's say for a pack, exactly as we could point it out, right? Is that community is there for a purpose, but so is business.
Yeah, then hence stages wise, you also have to build the community. Different stage, different.
I like how, the entire panelists sort of agreed on different aspects of the same thing. So it's really cool.
I think I have an example, right, as to how community and business can merge. So if suppose, at the start of the year, people ask me, how would you grow your business and, get so many partner apps to like work with Interact? I would have said, I'll set an outbound sales engine. I'll go and speak to like 500 apps and get them, create conversion flows, the entire, sales playbook. Surprisingly, what worked was actually our community members being rallied to say, hey, we want to kind of target this project on this ecosystem. Can you help us get a connect? And that kind of a community-led approach towards, an affiliate model was, I think, the biggest sort of success driver for us getting so many partners. So yeah, community tied to the business goal. And then we have the sub-community of affiliates, sub-community of influencers, sub-community of power users, and sub-community of people who keep letting us know what our competitors are doing, right? So there are sub-communities, regimes essentially in your Discord server that you need to leverage again and again.
I think this is the most powerful part of Web3 projects. In Web2, you don't have this in the beginning of your project. Only once you have become big, you have acquired market share, so people might talk to each of their friends about like, oh, I bought this Apple phone and it is cool, you should also buy it. But this is in Web3, only it happens that from the day one, even before the product, you have the community talking about it.
Correct. I think one of the reasons that really contributes towards what you said, people actually talking about your product a lot more, the community being a lot more engaged, is in Web3, you have the line between a user and an investor a lot more blurred. You have both of them in the same person, right? So while it puts a lot of the power into the hands of the user, it also means that that comes with a certain set of responsibilities in the way that the dynamics of community itself is structured sort of changes. So that brings me to the next question, in fact, which is in terms of onboarding people into the community. So we all, I think, especially when we're growing out new projects, we want to try and understand how is it that we can strike a balance between keeping your early adopters loyal, right? And also onboarding more mainstream users, more number of users. So how do you think you would approach this kind of a thing? What do you think people should be doing? What sort of pitfalls do you see? And how do you think people should, in general, navigate this kind of, maintaining this kind of a balance? And this time we're going to put JP on the spot first.
So one of the things about early adopters is that, and this is of course a balance with any business, right? You're talking about each businesses, you're talking about Web2. I think a lot of us tend to forget that the early adopters, and actually it's a fantastic case you pointed out that, you had your affiliates who are going to bat for you in the communities and spread the word, is that the early adopters often become the most ignored groups. And this is sadly a shape. Now, maybe they come on it just for the fact of, I'll get airdrop, right? But the fact that they actually contributed to what happens down the line in business, right? Which is where you see your numbers grow, you have product validation, community validation, your VC confidence starts increasing. Those early adopters need to be the most important groups, right? Which is why I appeal to everybody sitting in the audience, everybody who's at this event, those of you that are early adopters, so please becoming early adopters of projects so that you continue to gain reports, because that trend is shifting now. They are the ones that will tell the rest of the world for you what it is that is good about being there. Classic case in point, Ms. Appam is having a fantastic discussion about, Solana's rise over here. What is that, the term that they had? Super team. Right, as it began, super team, the way that it started over here is that everybody and their uncle wanted to be part of it. And that is something you cannot be, because people thought it was cool even if I just recorded a video of having billions. Now, trying to achieve that, you have winning movement.
Super team is slightly unique, bro. Not the kind of people who actually led super team in India, they are like so super famous among the right type of users Solana wanted to target, which is Solana did not wanted to target boomers. They wanted to target the new Gen Z crowd, and Tanmay was the best leader for that. And he though he talks like very funny and all this, but his company is very strategic and I mean, there is two parts of it.
I won't debate his credentials. That is another part for another conversation.
Yeah, also had. But Super Team India, not every Super Team is as good as Super Team India. There is.
Fair point. I'll just take that. Fair point. What I'm saying is that as that got Billy, there is a blueprint for a method to follow.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. And it's a lot of us that do the same thing. You have the veterans that come in the same picture, right? But the fact of the matter is your early adopters need to be treated well. Yeah, right? On the community part.
While I agree, Super Team was winning, right? But then there are a couple of interesting examples. Bera Baddies in the Bera chain ecosystem. Farcaster built in India, right? Amazing group of people, building for the Farcaster ecosystem. So I'm seeing some of those communities also, come up again and again, right? But coming back to the question as to how you balance adopters versus, the new users, right? So interestingly, I did a poll in my community. I asked them, what, if I have to airdrop to you today, and I have like 4 parameters, which one will you weigh the most? Proof of being early, proof of, coming to work, proof of, creating value, and proof of, just driving more growth and more users, right? Essentially speaking. And they chose proof of being early, right? So to our point, the community itself was like, what, proof of being early should have like a extra added advantage over other things, right? And then the way at least, we think about it, the way at least we have seen some of our partners, like even ZK Singh think about it earlier on, right? Was basically you need to define a cutoff time when you call someone an early adopter versus not. And then you give them some multipliers, some extra benefits. And then everything else is, just basis the amount of, work and contribution that you have done. Which for a ZK Sync was amount of, transactions you've done, the volume, for example. For a bridging, it will be how much fees you have paid them, those kind of things, right? So it depends on protocol to protocol. For a Farcaster, maybe it will be the type of posts you're, creating and the impressions you're getting. So that really depends from ecosystem to ecosystem. But the basic idea is you need to kind of create a proof of the value that you generated. And on top of that, add some multiplier for being early, right? And that again is subjective. You can call it like, you know what, the multiplier should be 10 times, should be 1.5 times. And that is up for debate. I don't really have a point of view on that, right? But that's how to go about.
And sometimes this is where project does it wrong. So the multipliers doesn't work, and the early adopters actually is not treated most of the time. Very few projects have done it well, but in most of the cases, early adopters are not the one who actually get most benefited out, and the ones who get benefit out are the ones who joins later, because by then project have more. Not every project can be ZK Sync, because there are devs coming out of hackathons, building products, and then trying to make it into a business. So now these are coming from a different market mindset, and for them to have a proper strategy, definitely like companies like Interact and others can help from the learnings of bigger companies that have done it on a better strategic way. But the moral, if builders are there in this group, then they should think about early adopters are the most important people, and they should have the multiplier should actually be enough beneficial for them to be sticking to the project on a longer run. But then that is also subjective, like he was saying. The perspective of your early adopters will change, because then they will start comparing your project with something else. And so we need to take a base of a stand that there has to be some set of multipliers, and early adopters should be treated better.
So actually, on that note, this is coming out of personal curiosity.
Yeah.
I do agree with, because one part of what an early adopter has done is discovery, right? When you have no name in the market, and they have actually interacted with you, so taken a certain amount of risk, or have chosen to engage when they would have probably engaged with a bigger protocol. Now, my question is actually, even our discussion is currently very focused on tokens and the kind of multipliers we could give for tokens. And now what I want to understand is, if any of you have a slightly different perspective, is there a way in which early adopters can be rewarded, not just in tokens, but any other forms of value? And I'll add a caveat here. I do recognize the fact that 99% of early adopters are just looking to farm tokens and get some sort of special benefits.
Can I add? Because I have to think about it most, because there are already existing players in market who are much bigger than my project, right? So I have to create some value that the others are providing this value, then what unique ICO can provide to our partners. And if I have been talking to a lot of people who are using campaigns to build early adopters and create community. One of the most important aspect which I actually got into Web3 for was education. I never thought I will get a lot of tokens from a project and I will become rich. This was never my intention, honestly. And this is now started to get missing because of bigger companies' strategy, creating structures to build community, and somehow that structure doesn't have the two parts. One is education, general education about Web3. It's not about Solana, Ethereum. It was never about Solana, Ethereum and L1, L2s, all this back in the days. It was mostly about, we are coming here to change centralization to decentralization, which was the narrative back in the days, and that connected a lot of people on a human level. And this now connects to a project. Like some of my community members are sticking from last 3 years. The only reason is that they love privacy and they don't care where the project is going, but they are sticking because they want to see what else can happen in privacy aspect, And this is sort of getting missed in the newer projects that are coming in because of the market condition change. And you can see pump.fun and all this crazy stuff happening. I don't know. Multipliers are important technically for every marketer that you need to learn all these things, but you also need to bring in understanding of, learning, education, all these factors. Yeah. So maybe you can structure it better.
No, I think so. Very interesting question, right? Can we reward early adopters outside of tokens? It kind of already happens. So if you look at the Polygon ecosystem, the earliest adopters ended up building the first apps on Polygon and they are mainstream today, right? The same thing is happening in Monad or Abera, right? So essentially, you have this earlier advantage of building an app on them and understanding and being part of the so-called mafia or the insider sort of, community that's there. That's already there. Then secondly, I think what just happens is because you're in the ecosystem, then even newer projects end up, allocating you tokens because you have been like a veteran to the space.
Yeah.
So those kind of, second order trickle down effects also happen in terms of financial incentives, right? So the point here is tokens for sure, but then on top of that, probably employment and job opportunities in the ecosystem, giving you grants to build the right apps because they understand your tech the most probably, or, you are kind of, working the closest with them is one way to think about it, right? And then for us, at least what has worked slightly well, again, difficult to quantify because the moment you take the money out of the picture, it becomes like subjective. It's essentially, we try to also give reputation and like, appreciation to the early adopters in different ways, right? Which could be giving them shout outs from our almost 1 million follower Twitter account, or, just going ahead and, inviting them to our own side event. So our early adopter is coming to our side event tomorrow, by the way, right? And that's pretty interesting, right? It's like a very good way to like, reward someone as well. So those are some of these other ways. But then long story short, like you mentioned, 99% of them are here for the money. So if they do get the money, they become sad.
But Apur, I want to, like, because you have worked with a lot of projects, have you seen a good example where the money was not the factor? Like the tokens were not the factor to build a community. The initial community started from just an idea that, hey, something else, sorry, F word, centralization, and we join hands together to build something cool. And then people just started following, okay, what is this new stuff happening? Something like that, like something non-tangible, more on the education side that you might have worked with some of your partners that you can share this.
So yes, I think there are a couple of them, right? But now because they've become so mainstream, you can't even, distinguish.
Yeah.
Right. So Meta, I think when they started the entire proof of liquidity consensus algorithm, very interesting innovation itself, right? And the kind of apps you can build on top of Meta because of that was very fast. So then the builders are attracted because of the USP of the chain, right? Similar to Blast, their native wheel kind of, got those builders that wanted to utilize the native wheels. And we see some very interesting applications like unruggable NFTs, where you couldn't, rug the NFT, those kind of things, right? So those ecosystems at least initially adopted developers, but then those were like limited quality developers who really believed in the value pro. The moment the quantity starts increasing, it kind of becomes very difficult to, maintain the quality. That's been the case for us as well, to be honest, right? So, I don't really have a example today. All I know is Solana, right? I think when they started, that's like a best example of a community that really, I think, did trauma bonding over the bear run market, right? Going to 20 and then coming back to like 250, right? So that's something that's like very amazing, and probably that's like a community that we should think more about.
But JP, I'll need you to be very concise with this particular answer if you've got.
No, I've got nothing to add. These two guys, really stole the show.
So I've got one last question I want to touch upon before we wrap up this panel. And I think this is a fairly fundamental question, right? So in a trustless ecosystem, how do you think we should go about building trust? And not just building trust, but also maintaining trust. And I've got an opinion on that, but I'm probably going to hold back on that. But JP, over to you.
How do you build trust? Wow, that's a deeply philosophical question, because that's a fundamental of every relationship that ever stands, right? How do you build trust as a company? How do you maintain that for a community? How do you manage your stakeholders, investors, and so on? So how do you build trust? I think one of the best ways to establish that is the same way that we look at, if we don't have a blueprint at home, right, is to look at what brands do, right? And is to go on consistency, right? You know for a fact that you have to act with a particular purpose, and you continue to do that and deliver that example standard of quality, or you have laid out in your roadmap that this is what you're going to do, and you continue to do just that. And I think that just by virtue of being that process, which is like greatly done by McDonald's and everybody else, it is just consistency. So if you do that, I think you will be able to and do what you say. It's just these two things: continue to do well and do what you say. You build trust, very simply.
Can I Vikram?
Yeah.
So from a technical perspective, nothing is decentralized anymore. It is more like a trust minimized. Yeah. So, right, what I mean by trust minimized is like bringing actually the issuers, now bringing up the centralized authorities on chain, and then trying to play around different games with that. That's called trust minimized approach, in that you have different examples to make it more Understandable Circle is one company that brings in issuers who actually issues and stable coins. Similar to that, now people are in identity and all. So I think it's now replicated the same environment which was in centralized approach is now coming into decentralization. But the important thing is like here we can quantify everything. Like someone is saying, I hold 100 tokens. We can actually see it. He holds 100 token and he cannot fake it. So this is the two things I wanted to add. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just adding on the technical bit, right? So essentially the economic incentives is like the bedrock of being trust minimized systems, right? You create economic incentives where if someone falters their trust, then they essentially, got penalized in such a strong way that they don't really go about breaking their trust. That's basically the cornerstone of Bitcoin, for example, or anything that kind of came, right?
Also, one more perspective. Now the you can see the whole market at the market cap that we have hit. From here, we are now directly competing with gold standard, right? Like to get there, we need to get all the real world people who are not on Web3, and that can only happen when they are feeling lesser and lesser, fear of losing their money to come on blockchain, and that can only happen if there is some sort of trusted issuer sort of concept. So I can see that mainstream of the blockchain now slowly happening.
Okay, JP's got also something.
So I see your perspective, and I'll raise you one. Raul Paul recently said in an interview at a $3 million market cap, if they exponentially rate the adoption from the internet vis-a-vis adoption for Web3 at this point of time, what you're going to look at is, 100 trillion market cap, right? Which means they're already at 3% at this point of time, and that number is expected to hit by 2030 if they exponentially grow that. So in terms of trust, gold standards, and so on, we're already on our way there in a very, very good way, with an amassment of about 4 billion people across the planet. So yeah, it seems to be already on.
Like we're discussing economic incentives, consistency, very fair, right? I think what's also important is if you think in any relationship, the idea of being open to feedback and being transparent about, being wrong. Those are the two most important things also if you think about, building trust, right? I mean, you have to be consistent, but then also admit when you're wrong and be open to feedback and then incorporate that. And that's how trust, kind of develops. And I've seen that happen, right? Like we were running our own Twitter channel with our own content, and then we just asked the community for feedback, changed, and we saw the impressions pick, the engagements pick, right? And that built even more trust for newer people joining it. So yeah, I think that sums it up, at least for me.
All right, awesome. So I think, let me sum up. We'll have to sort of wrap this panel out. Unfortunately, I know that we can jam about this all night.
I think we should invite everybody to come to the last table there, and then we can continue that.
So I think this panel will be open to questions even while the next panel is going to be happening. So in case anybody is getting bored of the main panel on stage, you can always come back to hang out with the cool guys out here. But apart from that, I think I'm just going to quickly sum it up. I think community is important, right? Second is make sure that especially when it comes to rewarding your community and building your community, be very, very prudent in the way that you're going about it. Make sure that you do not make false promises, build trust. And I think the key takeaway I'm having, especially with respect to trust and community, is just don't break trust, be consistent. And I think the rest will follow, right? So I think that's about it from us. Thank you so much, Junaid. This has been wonderful as a panel. Over you all.